Hey guys, Hybrid here, and let's talk Avengers 3 Villains this evening, morning, noonish, whenever I end up uploading this. Anyways, yes, so let's just cut straight to the chase. We know that the main villain for Avengers 3 is going to be Thanos. Thanos, I think it said Thanos appropriately. We'll learn when they finally say it in the movie, I guess. But I really hope he looks like this picture here that will be on the screen, because I think that looks pretty cool. Obviously, this picture does not have the Infinity Gauntlet in it, which presumably will also be in the movie and will probably, I say probably, that will be like, not the plot device, but that will be the main goal of Thanos in this movie, will be either completing the gauntlet and then using it, or just using it, or something along those lines. But something I want to talk about more than Thanos is the people, because one thing for the first Avengers is that you couldn't just have all the Avengers fighting Loki at the same time. They need a way to spread out the Avengers somewhat. And what did they do? They had the Chitauri army, or Armada invasion, whatever you want to call it. The Chitauri basically were the drones of this movie to help space out the Avengers so they weren't all just fighting Loki, because that would have been overkill, and probably would have been actually not really overkill as much as it would have been it would have been too much in like at one time on one certain thing, because Thor versus Loki was good enough, Captain America versus Loki was good enough, but all of them all together fighting Loki at the same time, that would have been a bit too much, I think, to make sense of. And similarly for Age of Ultron for Avengers 2, we know Ultron's going to be the big bad in that movie. Obviously, he's in the title and everything, but from the concept art, it looks like he'll have drones, which are obviously going to be the henchmen, the Chitauri of this movie, which will probably keep other Avengers like Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Captain America. It'll probably keep all of them busy. Like I heavily would assume each member will have their time to shine fighting Ultron, but in the meantime, when they're not fighting Ultron, they're not going to be kicking back on the beach. They're probably going to be fighting one of the Ultron drones, which is totally fine because Ultron's had drones in the past. He's had Ultron 50,000s going around, especially in the Age of Ultron comic, which I don't think they're basing this movie off of, hopefully, because that'd be ridiculous. But anyways, so Avengers 3, like I said, the big villain is Thanos, but who are going to be the drones? Who are going to be the characters that the rest of the Avengers are going to fight, while presumably characters like Thor and Hulk will be going head-to-head against Thanos for most of the fight. And that's where I push along to a group of characters introduced in the Infinity story, written by Jonathan Hickman, who's one of my favorite comic book writers. But, even though it's so recent, and even though Infinity feels like it was a long time ago, even though it just ended really, but even though it was such a recent introduction to comics, fans have latched on to this group for some reason, and they really want to see this group in the movies. And that group is called Cole Obsidian, aka the Black Order, which is essentially Thanos' elite group of killers, so to speak. But I think a more proper term would be like his elite guard, essentially, put it in terms like that. And they're called the Black Order. Well, their official name, sorry, like I said before, is Cole Obsidian, but most people call them the Black Order. And it was a pretty cool thing. They essentially did the work that Thanos would have done or drones would have done. But the difference is that they're an elite fighting force. It's like a special ops team. They're not just soldiers you're throwing out there. They're a unique group. And I think that's something that they should incorporate in the Avengers movie. Because there's Thanos, but then there's 5 of the Black Order. 5 different members of the Black Order. You could really work with that. You could have 2 Avengers fighting one of them. 1 Avenger fighting one of them. Like, the possibilities are kind of endless. Like, this would be a great change of pace, because I feel like it'd be too repetitive if Thanos, threw another Chitauri army against the Avengers, or threw some other army against the Avengers, or some robotic drones. Like, if it was just Thanos and the Black Order, it'd be a much more intimate fight in regards to, the other movies where it's just been like drones and armies, and then the one big baddie. So I really think this would be the way to go, that they should go. And, I put the character descriptions there if you don't know who the Black Order is, and I'll just go over it really briefly. So we'll start off with Corvus Glaive. I think that's how you say his name. A lot of people actually are hoping that the person, the right-hand man, so to speak, for Thanos in the first Avengers movie, that was just called the Other, a lot of people were looking for him in the comics, and there wasn't really any one character that fit that description. Like, there were several characters that had the possibility of being the Other, but one character that's been a big fan theory ever since Infinity is Corvus Glaive. And that's because he looks like the character and also does share some of the, so to speak, qualities. And in the Infinity comic, when they gave the character bios, so to speak, descriptions, his one says the first of the five, Thanos is most favored, which would explain why he'd be with Thanos if he's the Other and, the right-hand man, so to speak. But Corvus is a cruel, arrogant, and the most loyal of the Black Order. A warrior who betrayed his own people and sold his soul to Thanos to pursue a different kind of glory. His powers are strength, speed, and as long as his otherworldly blade remains whole, he cannot die. So that's pretty cool. I think he'd be a really cool character to put in there. I know a lot of people were hoping maybe Mephisto, like in the comics, will be the Other, or maybe that Loki will take Mephisto's place in Avengers 3, because Mephisto is kind of being the trickster during the whole Infinity Gauntlet storyline. I'm fine with Loki being in Avengers 3. I think it'd be fine if he took Mephisto's role as kind of like the trickster-ish person, especially since so far it's been somewhat established that Loki and Thanos kind of have some sort of alliance in some way, shape, or form, or at least we know Loki owes Thanos, and due to, and I think it's fine to talk about the spoiler now, the ending of Thor: The Dark World, Loki has replaced Odin. He's still disguising himself as Odin, but he's replaced Odin as the King of Asgard. So as such, there's no reason why Thanos cannot have the Tesseract anymore, which, is what Thanos wanted from Loki in the first place. So I think their debt's probably paid, and they probably have some sort of alliance of some sorts. If not an alliance, more of an insurance policy to make sure that Loki stays the King of Asgard, and Thanos won't, wreck his stuff, basically. So we go to the next character, though, who's actually pretty badass in her own right, which is Proxima Midnight. She's the far right, described as the cruelest of Thanos' generals, a predator in every sense of the word. She is the greatest warrior in Thanos' army. So I would love to see her fight against someone like Captain America, who's arguably the best fighter of the Avengers. I think that'd be a pretty cool fight between the two. Very hand-to-hand combat oriented, and instead of having a fight between an energy projection person and Captain America, because I think that wouldn't be as much fun to watch, especially after the Winter Soldier. I think a lot of people really did enjoy seeing the hand-to-hand combat choreographed that we did get in that movie. And her powers are that she's a savage hand-to-hand fighter. She has her spear, which when thrown can transform into 3 tracers of black light that never miss their target. So that'd be pretty cool to see. These beams are lethal to most creatures. So I'd assume if she were to throw this, Captain America would probably dodge it with his shield, obviously. But then we go to the next character, who I would assume would be immediately placed against the Hulk just due to his physical stature and abilities. So his description is for Black Dwarf, that when compared to the others of the Black Order, Black Dwarf seems almost normal, feigning joy and contentment. In reality, this celestial nihilist, which I think I said that wrong, is simply more at peace with the oblivion Thanos seeks than the others of the Black Order. And his abilities are super strength, and he has super dense, unbreakable skin. So definitely I can see Hulk being his big bad he fights against. That'd be pretty cool. Maybe also Iron Man would pull out the Hulkbuster armor, maybe a new version of the Hulkbuster armor, which would hopefully be more improved after presumably Hulk would trash the one he has in Avengers 2. So moving on from Black Dwarf, we have Supergiant, who's actually not that giant, but history unknown, a mentally unstable omnipath and telepathic parasite. Supergiant seeks out intellect and devours it. What she knows, Thanos knows. And powers are as a mental parasite, controls, steals, and devours the minds of her victims. So that'd be pretty cool to see. Hopefully in Avengers 3 we'd have Guardians of the Galaxy also there to fight with the Avengers against Thanos due to the Guardians, especially Gamora. She has obviously a very, very intimate and polar relationship of sorts with Thanos, which, by the way, Gamora versus Proxima Midnight would be pretty cool to see too. But for against Supergiant, the reason I mentioned the Guardians of the Galaxy is because one person that's rumored to become a member eventually is Adam Warlock, who does a lot of stuff with the Soul Gem, and that would be a really awesome fight to see. Supergiant versus Adam Warlock with the Soul Gem, or just in general, Adam Warlock without the Soul Gem still has some of those abilities. They're just not as greatly enhanced. So it'd be pretty cool to see them fight each other. Also, maybe Scarlet Witch versus Supergiant, if Scarlet Witch expands her powers more with her hexes, because I know she has telekinesis also in Avengers 2, but maybe she, expands that with her hexes to do a little bit more. That'd be pretty cool to see. And then last but not least, we have Ebony Maw, who could also be the other for all we know, even though Corvus Glaive, out of all these members, is a much more likely candidate. But Ebony Maw he's described as a thin razor of a man, not a fighter, but a thinker. A black tongue that spreads mischief and evil wherever he goes. He seems to be the weakest of the Black Order, but in truth he's the most dangerous of them all. His powers are believed to be none, but, that's probably a lie. And that has to be a lie, because he seems to have a definite silver tongue. In the Infinity comic, he essentially manipulates everybody at the end of it, which leads to actually Thanos being defeated. And the son of Thanos, Thane, who I doubt to see in the MCU anytime soon, using his abilities. And if I remember correctly, he's currently teaching Thane how to further develop his abilities. I haven't been reading that much regarding Thane post-Infinity. I know they have a digital comic out for that. I just haven't been interested enough to read it. Maybe I will soon. But yeah, so the Black Order, though, I definitely would love to see in Avengers 3. I think that'd be really cool to put against the Avengers as a team, because they're a team also. So it'd be interesting to see team versus team. How does this team strategize versus the Avengers? It's just one of those things that'd be really cool to see, instead of, like I said before, Avengers versus Army, Avengers versus drones. That will get kind of boring eventually, and it would just seem like they don't know what to do with the rest of the Avengers members that aren't fighting the main villain at the time. So, moving on, though, back to Thanos. What do I want to see from Thanos? Definitely, I want him to be a threat. That's one thing I'm really happy they're doing, is that they're building up the character, and they're taking their time with it over Phase 2 and starting with Avengers 1. Because we know quite a bit about the character already without even seeing him, without even hearing him yet. Well, technically we saw him in Avengers 1, but you know what I mean, without him actually having an official presence besides the after credit scene. So I gotta say, props out to Marvel for doing this. This is how you do it. This is how you build your franchise's big baddie. Because for better or for worse, Thanos is essentially the franchise's big baddie. Avengers 3 is where they're gonna peak with Thanos. After that, that's going to be the most hyped up threat they're going to fight. And I think it's a great thing. I think Joss Whedon was really smart by doing that in the after scene credits, inserting that in there, because that started the build-up, that started the momentum, and he won't just be a shoehorned villain. And I think the reason why that's a good thing is because when you have the villain first appear in the movie, for example, Ultron and Age of Ultron, you have to give his background. You have to explain his motives. But by introducing the character ahead of time of his main appearance as the villain, you can already start getting his motives. You can already get information on the character, backstory on the character. So when you see the character, he could be the character, and we could tell a great story with that character. So definitely I think they're doing it about the way it should be done, especially, once the Infinity Gauntlet goes down, you're not going to really have time to explain the origin of Thanos. They probably will go into it a little bit, but I'm sure they're going to focus more on the story at hand than that. And it'll probably be a 3-hour epic movie also. So I don't think they're going to want to waste too much time with it. But yeah, that's all I really have for this. Comment below what your guys' thoughts. What villains do you want to see in Avengers 3? I'm not saying these are the definite villains. I'm just saying that since Thanos is going to be the big bad, the Black Order is who I'd also want to see accompany him. But yeah, so if you haven't read Infinity, I recommend you read it. It's probably the best Marvel event they've released recently, which is saying something because they've released 8 in the past 2 years, it feels like. But yeah, comment below what your guys' thoughts. Would you like to see the Black Order? Who do you think the other is? Would you like to see Loki in Avengers 3? And for Thanos, Are you happy with them doing the slow build-up that they're doing? And how would you like him to be in Avengers 3? Like, example, like a iconic moment. Like, I know a lot of people want him to break Captain America's shield. A lot of people want him to do that. I forgot what he said. Something about a dead man to Captain America. I personally hope he kills Captain America in Avengers 3. I think that would have a large impact, especially, you know, with him breaking the shield, also shattering the shield. But I think if he were to kill Captain America, while Captain America is like standing up to him, so to speak, I think that would speak volumes, and that would just, you know, have a lot of emotional impact to it. So yeah, comment below what your guys' thoughts as Hybrid, and I'll see you guys later.